Hello there, in this video I thought I'd share a few MIDI programming tips related to programming percussion. So I have a fairly loose plan, but it's basically going to be a case of creating something on the fly and showing you some of the techniques and tricks that I use to get a good percussion performance, virtual instrument performance. So I've got a little djembe loaded up here to start us off. It's from a library called World Percussion 2.0. It's quite a nice, well-programmed library. I'd recommend it. And where I tend to start is I want to make sure that the velocity response on my keyboard is appropriate to the thing that I'm trying to play. So for example, this kind of default response on my keyboard has a lot of dynamic range to it, but in the context of a busy mix, you might want some of those lower velocity notes to just be a bit more present. So now you can really hear those in between notes. So let me program a little pattern and then see where we go from there. Cool. So I'm going to quantize this. I generally tend to quantize percussion parts. Obviously, it depends on the style of music you're working in. One thing I might do to make this pattern more interesting is create another MIDI track which references the exact same instance of this plugin. So this is the command. It's new track with same instrument, and you can assign that to any key command you want. I'm going to fill in this pattern with just some offbeat notes. So because this is on a new MIDI lane, it makes it very easy to control the velocities. So that's a bit loud for those ghost notes. I'm going to make them very soft. If I wanted to complexify this pattern and just add that little bit more detail, I'm going to create another MIDI track. And I might want to copy paste this a few times. Command R is like a copy paste, an instant copy paste. So that's really good for percussion parts. Now let's say that I want a more metallic soloistic part on top of that, just a something like that. I'm going to show you an alternative way of programming accent patterns, which I've been playing around with. This is based on a custom logic script that I created using ChatGPT. It's one of the few things that ChatGPT has actually been really useful for recently. And it's called Velocity Keys. And for this metallic sound, I think I'm going to go for something in Reason again. It's the Objekt synth, which has really nice physical modeling approach to creating sounds, and it has some great percussion sounds. So let's try metal plate. I might play with the tone of this sound in a minute, but what I want to show you is this scripter plugin. Basically, what it does is you have your target note, which in this case is C3. That's the note that's going to be played. And then what it does is maps the notes between C3 and C5, but you can set them to anything you like. It maps that 2-octave range to different velocity values. So if I play up my keyboard, I'm getting one note triggered, but the higher I play, the louder the velocity. You can like perform patterns, accent patterns, by playing different keys on your keyboard in a really controlled and consistent way. Now let me tweak the tone a little bit. You have these damping controls which are quite fun. Aha. like a kind of room verb would be good. That instantly makes it feel a bit more naturalistic. Okay, let's try that. So what's cool is those accents are completely consistent in this kind of way of playing. You just quantize this again so it makes a little bit more sense. Like those top notes, but it just sounds like the percussionist is very good. I'll make this script available. It's far from perfect, and there are a few issues with the note on, note off information if you use it in the record MIDI to track here way, but I think it's good enough to be useful, so I'm still using it. Let's drag all these down and just make the dynamic range even bigger. So I need to move these notes off the black note. Quite like that. Maybe just try moving this one up a tone or a semitone. Cool. I'm going to do the same trick again and create another lane and just add some little fills. I quite like triplets. Cool, let's try that. So that was, I think that was 16th note triplets, was it? And I think in this case, some delay is going to be really suitable for this kind of slightly kind of more sound designy, don't quite know what you're listening to kind of thing. I think those sort of sounds which are a bit hybrid often work well with some aggressive processing. I quite like Space Blender recently. I'm gonna play around with this and see if that gives us a more colourful ambience. So here I feel like is an example where I might want to put in some kind of fill, and you know, a very common fill would be to go dugga 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 in a really smooth way. So again, with this script, I can just play up the keys like that, you know. You know, and that's kind of an easy, convenient way to program a line like that. One thing that percussions often do is flam, meaning to play an accent like this, or two hits that are very close to each other. So here I can be really precise with how I want my two velocity, the two velocities of the two different notes to sound. You know, so I can say, oh, I want that, you know, that feels good. One thing that's very good for this type of situation where you're wanting to just play around with the micro timings is to get familiar with your nudge controls. So I have my key command set to option left and right, but it just allows you to get real precise, you know, whether you want a loose flam or a tight flam. Now, obviously, it's a bit lazy of me to just copy paste this pattern exactly. So one of the ways that I might create variation in a pattern is just to vary one of the layers but keep the core layer the same. In this case, I'm not too worried because this is just an example. Let's imagine we wanted to go into another section, a kind of contrasting section. So for a phrase like that, I'd be tempted to get it sounding how I want it in a short short phrase, like a 2-bar phrase, especially when it's quite a simple pattern like this, and then copy paste. Because again, what that's going to do is just make everything super consistent and have nothing jump out until we specifically want it to jump out, taking little small bits like this and little cells and repeating them like that. I can create variation with layers if I want to. So yeah, that for example I'll bring down a bit. Da, da, da. So really trying to hear it in my head. Maybe I'll add a little extra note here. Make these a bit lower. So then we've got this. So that's nice. Let me show you a different kind of approach that I might take if I wanted to put a cymbal part over the top of this little groove that we've got going. So I've just got a basic drum kit sound here, and it has a particularly nice ride cymbal. What I might do is use Logic's arpeggiator as, again, just an alternate way of creating very consistent accent patterns that I can play around with. You know, the most simple one might be just something like this. And if I make it a 2-beat pattern, you know, that's actually something that I do quite a lot. Maybe in this case a 3 would work better. And of course I can stop-start the pattern. You know, so it can also be a way of coming up with ideas. So let's try that. So I actually made a mistake there, but then it sounded quite good to me, so I thought I'd keep it. I might save that off the grid effect for the last time. See how that sounds. Cool. So what I might do, what I'm thinking is I might add a little syncopated bell, like the bell of the ride, like the little middle bit. I might add a little syncopated pattern using that. But I know in advance, again, I don't want there to be actually any variation in how hard that bell gets hit. I sort of know my idea is for that to be very consistent. So I'm going to use the velocity processor and just predefine the velocity value that I want. I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, you know, all of this controlling of the velocity information of the MIDI, you know, has the potential to really kill the track in terms of, not sounding human or not sounding, you know, sounding a bit robotic. And I totally resonate with that point of view as well. And there are definitely times when it's not appropriate. But I've actually found the more I've incorporated these sorts of techniques, the more it means that when I do want something to really stand out, it makes it more impactful if everything else is ticking along. And actually, real players are very consistent, like have the ability to be very consistent. And also, it's just about what you want. So just for the sake of demonstration, let me take this cymbal pattern, this da-ga-da-da-ga-da-da pattern, one step further. Say I want the overall pattern to swell and then go down, but I want the relative velocities to stay consistent. One way that I could achieve that would be to place a velocity processor after the chain in the MIDI effects area and go to Add and Scale. Cool, I like that. And we can always edit it if we want. Now, just for the sake of argument, let's say that in the next section of the track, we wanted to use this metallic sound again, but do a performance that is very roll heavy, and have that sound like a live player playing with sticks and kind of using the natural bounce of the sticks. That can be quite a laborious thing to program, and it can also be quite hard if you're doing it on a keyboard. I mean, obviously you can do that, but you're not doing what a drummer would do, which is take advantage of the natural bounce of the sticks. So there's a couple of ways that I could make this a bit easier to sort of play in real time. So one way that I could go about it is I can use a plugin called Ricochet, which is by Grumpy Monkey. And what this does is it takes the note on and note off information and turns that both into note on, note on. So as I press a key and then I let go, I get a second note. So that makes it very easy to play. It kind of, it feels really comfortable actually on the keyboard. You just get this kind of sense of bounce. It depends on the action of your keyboard. My keyboard's quite springy, so it allows you to do things like that. Let me show you quickly another Grumpy Monkey plugin, which is for a similar kind of purpose, or this one specifically for percussion rolls. This is just going to give us a very easy way to play rolls using the mod wheel. So when I hold down a key, it's a bit like having an arpeggiator, except with a bit more control. You can humanize it as well. There's buttons here for that. So you humanize the velocity a little bit, humanize the timing a little bit. I can slow it down, so there's a slider here. But again, this is not exactly what we want in this situation. What I'm imagining is an interesting kind of roll-heavy, kind of complex performed part that I can do in real time. So in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to record a bit of MIDI material, some individual notes, and then some phrases. Bring it all down a bit. And now I'm going to do glago-da-gut 16th notes, so flam plus 3 16th notes. Maybe a bit like that, yeah. That's nice. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is make a MIDI region, or make a MIDI file, basically, that has one of these phrases on every bar. And I have this folder called MIDI library. I'm going to load up this plugin called Remidi, which I've mentioned in one previous video, but it's still a relatively new one for me. I've changed the skin, maybe, since you last saw it. And I'm going to change this clip size to be 1 bar. And then I'm going to right-click and slice to pads, white keys. And what that's going to do is give me the ability to trigger each of these little MIDI clips on different notes on my keyboard. And what I'm actually going to do is put a transposer plugin before it in the chain so that it's a more comfortable place on my keyboard and I don't have to hit the transpose key. So now I have, on these notes down here, I'm just playing the white notes. I've got just regular hits, which are still velocity responsive, which is nice. So the MIDI still scales, like the velocities still scale according to your input. But now I also have a little rough or roll, a slightly slower one, an even slower one. So you can see how suddenly I have this quite playable little instrument. And the point is we've created these MIDI clips ourselves, really tailored to what I'm aiming at in this particular track. So okay, so here we have what I actually played. And you can see what I actually played was quite simple. It was just based around 16th notes, but the output was a lot more complex than that. So you can see how you can get some quite interesting patterns, and really what's nice about it is it's that very real-time way of figuring things out in performance mode. Let me see if I can make this sound a little more unhinged just by playing around with the settings. So what's nice is I can play around with that dampening in real time. That works quite well. So that's a pretty aggressively weird sounding instrument. But you know, if I was thinking about this more in a cinematic context, I could imagine just filtering it off. Playing around with the high-low pass filters, putting some of that reverb back on, trying it with a delay, maybe some distortion. Yeah, let's get that space blender going again. In terms of percussion arrangement, I would definitely want some heavy subby boom things going on. Naturally, one of my main go-tos would be Damage, because it's fantastic. So a natural layer to kind of lock into that would be some sub-hits. So I'll just try a couple. Maybe this one. It could be a bit lower even. So I'll use the tuning knob. And just really fill in that low end. And again, I'm just gonna play it once and then copy paste it so that I don't have to edit all the velocities. I know that that's what I want. I tend to put shakers in rooms, especially when recorded in mono. So let's keep the cymbal thing going just for a bit of unifying of everything. Okay, so what I want to do at the end is just add a roll. So here's the final beat with just a few tweaks. Thanks very much for joining me on this journey, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Happy composing.